Good morning. My name is Chef Travis Rutherford, and if you're watching right now, it's because there's something in your life that's pushed you to learn how to cook, or at least become a better home cook. Maybe you want to throw awesome dinner parties for your friends. You want to start providing healthier, tastier meals for your family, or maybe you just want to learn a basic life skill. No doubt, there's something that's hindered you in your learning process. Something that's kept you from achieving your full potential. Maybe it was some unclear recipe or a video that looks so easy or that could have gone awry. And you might even think that it's hopeless. I know, I've been there. I promise, by the end of this course, I'll prove to you that anyone can learn to cook anything without relying on recipes. So a bit about myself. I've been cooking for as long as I can remember. In fact, one of my earliest memories is burning my hand on an oven door while Mom was baking cookies. It just seemed natural that eventually I'd become a chef. But let me tell you a secret. I sucked. Yeah, I was a horrible cook. I just had no idea how much pain and effort it took to cook professionally. I was slow and lazy. Yeah, lazy. There was just so much to do and not enough time to do it. See, I was in the weeds every night, and I wasn't going to last. So I needed to do something. Otherwise, I might find my career stopped before I'd ever got started. So I had to learn. I watched everyone around me. I memorized their moves. And eventually, I picked up 1,000 little tricks that shaved hours off of my work. I went on to work from the best chefs in Hollywood. Names like Quint Hatfield, Jordan Kahn, Ludo Lefebvre. Learning from them and growing as a chef, I learned that all of cooking comes down to one simple thing. Now imagine if you could have done the same thing I did. What if you had years of restaurant experience guiding your every move? What if you had the ability to walk into any grocery store with no plan, pick up a few things, and get home and put together a meal? What would you do with that time, with that skill, with everything that you've learned from learning how to cook? Like, what would your culinary goals be? I'd like for you to write them down in the comments. And, eventually, once you refresh, you'll see that you're not alone. You should know that I am not a magician, okay? I don't have any special powers to instantly imbue you with the knowledge and skill that you need to become a successful home cook. But I've designed these webinars, this one and the ones over the next couple of weeks, to help you understand some of the basic principles and techniques behind cookery. So if you're expecting to become a master chef after watching a few videos, I'm sorry, but maybe you should keep looking for your magic bullet. If you could learn just from watching, then we would be a nation of master chefs. After all, the Food Network makes sure that we have cooking programs to, learn from, running 24/7. I'm talking to people who have decided to master a new discipline. And like any new discipline, it's going to take some work, some time, and some self-control. Luckily, the work isn't hard, the time isn't that long, and the rewards for following through are pretty tasty. So, that being said, let's get started. And if you have any questions along the way, put them in the comment section, and we'll get to them once we're done, all right? So it's important, if we're going to learn how to cook, that we appropriately define what the act of cooking is and what it entails. Cooking is not simply just throwing some ingredients in a pan and heating it up, although it can be as simple as that. Cooking is all at once, applied chemistry. It's art. It's exercising grace and fine motor skills. It's even a mindfulness practice if you want it to be. Also, since a meal is temporary by nature, since the very act of consuming it destroys it. It's the ultimate practice in letting go. So let me read something to you from Wikipedia here. Cooking or cookery is the art, technology, and craft of preparing food for consumption with the use of heat. So that's pretty accurate. But I believe in a more definitive description. See, I believe that cooking is managing the relationship between ingredients, temperature, and time. This is what I mean by saying, when I say that it's all one thing. Anything you cook, from an omelet to cake to ice cream, falls under this description. And I know that it sounds a little sciencey, but I'll delve into it a little bit more later. So learning to cook requires a specific frame of mind to have any success. as is common with any new discipline. Note that I refer to cooking as a discipline. Cooking requires a measure of discipline, and a lot of people come across roadblocks when learning a new skill, and having the discipline not to give up can make all the difference. But relax, I'll make it easy for you. As I've mentioned before, cooking is more than simply throwing together some ingredients and applying heat. That's like saying painting is, smearing paint onto a canvas. Completely accurate, but an oversimplification. It's more like driving. It's a complicated set of steps that, is difficult at first, but becomes second nature after a little bit of practice. Now, I won't bore you with a lengthy science lesson, but I will be explaining how to think about the process that's happening as we cook. I believe that understanding these relationships between our ingredients, time, and temperature is the fundamental key to becoming a successful on-the-fly cook. It's the difference between following a recipe for chicken a la king and knowing how to cook anything a la king. Does that make sense to you? All right, now, secret number 1. Learning to cook, and cooking in general, doesn't have to take a lot of time. See, the biggest challenge most people have when learning to cook, or learning anything for that matter, is having patience and a realistic timeline. It takes years of practice to attain mastery in anything, and cooking's no different. Talented people are that because of countless hours practicing their craft. In my case, it was making dinner with my mom nearly every week since I was 5. Then, as an adult, 8 years of cooking hundreds of meals in professional kitchens. Luckily for you, the goal isn't mastery of cooking, rather the mastery of the principles. Do you see the difference? Focused cooking of at least 2 meals a week for the next few months, the equivalent of a few hours really, should do the trick. If you focus on meals that teach you the principles and start with small, simple skills and then build on those skills the next time around, kind of like a video game, level up 1 meal at a time. I mentioned that when I first started cooking professionally, I was slow, real slow, constantly on the verge of being fired slow. And one thing I learned is that success in the kitchen is only about 50% how fast you really are. Don't make the mistake that I did of just trying to move faster. The result is a lot of pain, in the form of sliced fingers, shaved off knuckles, and burns all up and down my arms. Still have the scars. See, the other 50% is all organization. The fastest guys in the kitchen couldn't peel a carrot faster than me or chop shallots any quicker. What they did do is they planned their day in such a way that they didn't waste a single minute or a single step. An environment where you have 6 hours of work to do and only 3 hours to do it, this is pretty critical. You can apply these same lessons at home. This can mean the difference between dinner taking 2 hours to prepare to taking just 20 minutes. Isn't that cool? Imagine what you could do with the extra hour and a half. What would you do? Now, if you're one of those people thinking, I don't have 20 minutes to spare, I encourage you to reassess that statement. So, the Nielsen report shows that the average American watches about 5 hours of TV a day. That's a lot. And I'm not saying that you do, but the average American does. And if you count media consumed on the computer and cell phones, that number jumps to about 7.5 hours. Not to mention the hours spent just surfing the internet. The point I'm trying to make is that we tend to say that we don't have time, when what we really mean is we'd rather spend some time doing something else. So the question I have for you is, isn't achieving your culinary dreams worth missing an episode of Top Chef? Or, do you want to become a great cook or just watch other people cook? I get it, though. Most people don't think cooking is fun. Excuse me. So this brings me to secret number 2. Cooking doesn't have to be hard or frustrating. One of the first things that a pro cook learns is that most of your frustration comes from your own experience. Most people try to learn how to cook by opening up a cookbook. Then they muddle their way through something that looks fairly simple, and then when it doesn't come out perfect, or in some cases edible even, what happens? They give up. These people don't know that the more you learn, the easier it gets. So the secret comes down to this. Manage your expectations. Surprises are frustrating. Yeah, that's one of the reasons for this webinar and the webinars over the next few weeks. I'm going to give you the intel that you need to make your mission a success. Here's a couple things to know before we get into the thick of things. When learning a new discipline, there are some startup costs. Whether it's paints and brushes, gym clothes and membership, ingredients, pots and pans, these costs can take people by surprise. Which is why, as an instructor, I have a mandatory tools of the trade lesson for all my private students, which includes the average prices for materials and supplies needed for the course of instruction. I encourage you to do your research. Otherwise, you might end up going to Target to buy pots and pans and leave empty-handed, or, worse, empty wallet. Another cost of learning is the amount of physical effort you must exert. Just as watching Enter the Dragon won't make you into Bruce Lee, you're simply not going to be able to cater your cousin's wedding after watching a couple of videos. Cookery is a physical skill, so the learning is also physical. It takes practice to get all your muscles to work in sync with each other. It's one of the reasons we call it the dance. Also, there's a bunch of repetitive motions, standing, cuts, and burns. The first two completely avoidable, and the risk of the latter two can be minimized, if not eliminated completely, with good safety practices. Accidents do happen, however, so, don't be scared off by a little boo-boo. Once you've learned how to manage your kitchen resources, time, movement, space, and the pantry, the less cooking becomes a frustration and the more it becomes a joy. You'll want to do it more. Imagine that, coming home, wondering what you're going to cook for dinner, and then being pleasantly surprised with what you come up with. It's going to be a healthy, restaurant-quality meal that took very little time and was a joy to prepare. Most meals that you've had in restaurants can easily be recreated at home. And that's secret number 3. You don't need to work in a restaurant to cook restaurant-quality meals. Once you master the very basic principles of cooking, you can prepare almost absolutely everything. Cooking at its core is really just one thing: managing ingredients, their relationship to each other, their temperature, and the time that they stay in that temperature. Different cooking techniques are just alterations on these 3 variables. So understanding that core tenet is the key to learning to cooking anything. Learning is just that one thing will make you leaps better. Isn't that exciting? So one of the first steps to tackle is basic knowledge and product identification. Learn how to taste with your whole body, not just your mouth. How to assess an ingredient and become familiar with its use is key. Here's an exercise you can do it on your own. Okay, so go to a high-end grocery, somewhere where employees are very knowledgeable. Better yet, go to a local farmer's market. After all, who knows the produce better than the people that grow it, right? So find a few ingredients that you're completely unfamiliar with. Talk to farmers about them and, find out what they taste like, how they grow, when they grow. Ask them how to eat that product. Learn what you can from the people that know the most. Also, start practicing recipes with simple ingredients and very few steps. Something that you can keep or freeze, or something that you can use in other recipes. See, a stock pantry helps you cut down on shopping and prep time, and that can be the difference between a stress-free meal and a disaster. But if you keep at it, focusing on the principles and then the technique, before long, you'll cut your ties with recipes and start cooking on the fly. Eventually, you'll gain enough skill and knowledge to throw an impressive dinner party. It's a task less daunting than it sounds. Another cool thing you'll notice is as you improve your skill, you'll develop your palate and your sense of smell. The more you deal in different ingredients and preparations, you'll start to notice the subtleties of flavor. Instead of just being hot or cold, good or bad, spicy or not, you'll see the meal in a whole new light. You'll know not only why it's good or bad, but how to make it better. Imagine the difference between watching an old VHS tape and watching the same movie on Blu-ray. It would be a world of difference. It's a kind of superpower, and you'll develop that superpower incidentally, passively, as you learn. You don't even have to try. And by the way, if you're looking to improve your dating, cooking is your force multiplier, all right? Being able to cook, especially if you're a dude, makes you immediately sexier. Google it. There's science behind this. Let's not forget, that cooking your own food is almost always healthier than nuking something or eating out of a box or bag. Don't forget, your physique is 20% what you do and 80% what you eat. So start cooking for yourself and you'll discover how much easier and inexpensive it is to eat healthy. So, over the next few weeks, I'm going to dive deeper into these 3 secrets and, how to apply them. These lectures will be shorter and higher velocity. You'll get practical advice and actionable steps that you can take to improve your cooking right away. I'll be exploring the function of flavor and taste. You'll learn why the pros call moving in a kitchen the dance, and learn how to dance yourself. And finally, I'll talk about heat in cooking and the concept of cooking things until done. It's my hope that over the next few weeks, together, we'll get you on your way to becoming a great home chef. Now, before I start answering questions, please like our page if you haven't already. And if you're interested in putting yourself on the fast track with some formal instruction, please sign up for our one-on-one classes at bibochefs.com. That's BIBO chefs.com. Now, I can take your questions.